All right, so today we're diving into something that I think is really, really important for business leaders,
Oh, absolutely.
and that is IT budgeting.
Yeah.
I know. I know
Not the most
it
glamorous
doesn't sound like
thing.
the
Yeah.
sexiest thing in the world, right?
Right.
But honestly, like
Yeah.
getting this right can really make or break your success.
Oh, I completely agree.
So
Yeah.
we've got a great article here that we're going to be looking at today.
Okay.
It's called Avoiding Common IT Budgeting Mistakes in 2025.
Right.
Um, and it's really interesting because like a lot of times I think that people think
Mwah.
that,
Yeah.
they don't have to be a tech expert to really understand this stuff.
Right.
But honestly, like when it comes to IT budgeting, you really do need to have a good grasp of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to be the one configuring the firewalls or anything, but
Right.
understanding the big picture,
Yeah.
like how technology fits into your overall business strategy,
Exactly.
that's crucial for any leader.
Yeah. And there's so many like hidden costs and things that people don't even realize
Oh, absolutely.
associated with technology.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
The cybercrime is just exploding.
Yeah.
So you really got to
Like you cannot ignore this stuff.
be ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You can't just think of IT as like a one-time expense.
Right.
It's an ongoing investment.
It's like, when you buy a car,
Yeah,
you got to pay for gas.
exactly.
You got to pay for insurance.
Maintenance, repairs,
Repairs.
tires. Yeah, it's the same with technology.
Yeah. And actually,
You got your software updates.
speaking of cars,
Hmm.
I almost bought a Tesla the other day.
Oh, really?
I know. I know. But I decided to go with like a hybrid
Okay.
just because I was a little bit worried about like
Okay.
the charging infrastructure.
Yeah, it's still developing.
Yeah. And, I do a lot of long drives
Yeah, I can see that being a concern.
for work and stuff. And I
Right.
just didn't want to
Makes
have to worry about like,
Right.
being stranded somewhere.
Range anxiety.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so
Back to IT budgeting.
yeah, so it's kind of like that with technology. Got
Yeah.
to think about those ongoing costs.
You got to factor in those hidden costs.
Yeah.
Like you said, software updates,
Yeah.
security patches.
Ah.
Eventually, you're going to need hardware upgrades.
Right.
New servers, new computers.
So what happens if you just ignore this stuff?
Oh, it can get ugly.
Like what's the worst case scenario?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
Your server crashes
Okay.
because it's outdated, hasn't been maintained. Suddenly, your entire business is paralyzed.
Wow.
You can't process orders.
Yeah.
You can't access customer data.
Right.
Your employees can't work.
Oh my gosh.
The cost of downtime can be astronomical.
That's a nightmare.
It is.
Yeah.
And then you've got the legal liabilities if you're handling sensitive data.
Right. And then on top of that, you've got cybersecurity,
Oh,
which is like
huge issue.
a whole other can of worms.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's something that a lot of business leaders are really worried about these days.
As they should be.
I mean, you hear about these ransomware attacks all the time.
All the time.
And it seems like it's just getting worse.
It is getting worse.
Yeah.
And it's not just big companies that are targets.
Right.
Small and medium businesses are increasingly vulnerable.
So are you telling me that like even a small business with like, 10 employees or something like that,
They can be a target.
they can be a target?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, cyber criminals often see them as easier targets because they might not have the same level of security as
Right.
a larger organization.
Yeah.
And the impact of a data breach,
Yeah.
it can be devastating for a small business.
Right. Paint me a picture.
Okay.
Like, what does that actually look like for a business leader?
You have to explain to your customers that their personal information
Oh,
has
hard.
been compromised. Their credit card numbers, their social security numbers, and it's all because you didn't invest in proper security.
I can see how that would erode trust pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I bet there's some serious legal and financial repercussions too, right?
Absolutely. You're looking at potential lawsuits, regulatory fines,
Wow.
not to mention the cost of cleaning up the mess and restoring your systems.
Right.
It can take months, even years, for a company to recover from a major data breach.
So basically what you're saying is that
Yeah.
security is not something...
You cannot afford to skimp on security.
Yeah.
It's essential.
All right. So let's say I'm a business leader
Okay.
and I'm listening to this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get it. Security is important,
Right.
but where do I even begin?
That's a great question.
Like there are so many different
Yeah.
products and services out there.
It can be overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
Right. You've got firewalls, antivirus software,
Yeah.
intrusion detection systems.
Like, how do I even know what I need?
Right. Well, that's where having a clear IT strategy becomes essential.
Oh,
A good first step is to understand your company's specific vulnerabilities.
okay.
What kind of data do you store?
Wow.
What are your most critical systems? Once you have a handle on that, you
Mhm.
can start looking at solutions that address those specific risks.
So it's not just about like buying the most expensive firewall or the
Exactly.
latest antivirus software.
It's about being strategic
Yeah.
and understanding what your company actually needs.
And sometimes that can be pretty hard to figure out on your own, right?
It can be. And that's where sometimes it makes sense to bring in outside expertise.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that in just a minute.
All right. Sounds good.
But first, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay. That's right. You don't have to have all the answers, you know.
Right.
There are people who can help you with this stuff.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like the budget then, because I know that's something that every business leader is concerned about.
Of course. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
obviously everyone wants to save money.
Right.
Um, but when it comes to IT,
Mm-hmm.
is it really true that like you get what you pay for?
It's a balancing act. You don't
Yeah.
want to just throw money at the problem.
Right.
But at the same time, you
Yeah.
don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish.
Right.
Because sometimes trying to save a few bucks up front
Mm-hmm.
can actually end up costing you a lot more in the long run.
Yeah, I've definitely fallen into that trap before.
I think we all have at some point.
Like, where do leaders tend to go wrong?
Well, one common mistake is getting lured in by the allure of free or super cheap
Oh, yeah.
software and hardware.
I'm all about free.
Yeah, it's tempting,
That's
right?
it, Lou.
But just like with anything else in life, there are often hidden costs associated with those
Wow.
bargain basement solutions.
So, like, give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you decide to go with a free project management software
Okay.
for your team.
Right.
It seems great at first, right?
Yeah.
It's free.
Free.
But then you start using it and you realize it lacks some of the key features you need.
Okay.
The customer support is non-existent
Right.
and it doesn't integrate with your other systems.
So now you're spending all this time trying to make it work,
Exactly.
and your team is getting frustrated.
Frustrated because they're not as productive as they could be.
Yeah.
And in the end, you might find yourself having to pay for a more robust solution anyway,
Oh.
which means you've actually wasted money and time
Right.
by going with the cheaper option initially.
It's like buying those like discount tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the ones you get at the...
Yeah. That
Oh.
break after
Yeah,
like
so-
5 uses.
Right. You think you're saving money, but you end up having to replace them constantly,
Right.
which costs you more in the long run.
And it's not just about the money either.
No, it's
You know,
not.
It's about like the lost
Like,
productivity,
it's productivity,
the security risks.
the potential damage to your reputation if your systems are unreliable.
Okay, so I'm hearing you loud and clear. Like,
Yeah.
don't be cheap when it comes to IT.
Within reason, right?
Like
You want to be
this.
smart about it.
Yeah.
You want to find the right balance between
Right.
cost and quality.
So what about scalability?
Scalability, that's a big one.
What is that?
Basically, it means choosing systems that can grow and adapt as your business expands.
Okay.
You don't want to get stuck with technology that works fine today but can't handle the demands of your company tomorrow.
Right. Like you don't want to have to like rip everything out and start over.
Exactly. It's like building a foundation for a skyscraper, even if you're only constructing a 2-story building right now.
Okay.
You need that flexibility to expand without having to start from scratch.
So how do you know if something is scalable?
Well, one key is to think about your long-term goals.
Okay.
Where do you see your company in the next 3 to 5 years? How many employees will you have?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of data storage and processing power will you need?
Okay. So you really got to like
You
say-
gotta have a vision.
Yeah.
And then you need to choose technology that can support that vision.
And if you're not a tech expert,
Right.
like how do you even know what to look for?
Well, that's where it often makes sense to bring in outside experts.
Okay. So you're talking about like consultants and stuff.
Consultants, yeah.
Yeah.
People who can provide an objective perspective
Uh-huh.
and help you navigate those complex choices.
So it's like having a trusted advisor,
Exactly.
someone who's been there, done that,
Yeah.
and can guide you through the process.
All right, so what about these like managed service providers?
MSPs.
MSPs. I feel like I've heard that term before.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what it means.
They're basically like your outsourced IT department.
Okay, so like they handle all the tech stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
They provide expertise, support, and peace of mind. Okay, so they handle like all the day-to-day IT stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what kind of things are we talking about?
So think about like system maintenance,
Okay.
security monitoring,
Huh?
software updates,
Oh,
even things like troubleshooting printer jams.
okay, so they're like my IT superheroes.
Exactly. They swoop in and save the day.
So that frees up like my internal IT team to focus on like,
Yeah, the more strategic projects,
yeah.
the stuff that really moves the needle for the business.
So it's not just about like fixing things when they break.
No, it's about being proactive.
Yeah.
It's about anticipating problems before they even arise.
Okay, and how do they do that?
Well, they bring a wealth of experience to the table.
Okay.
They've seen it all, dealt with all sorts of tech challenges across different industries.
So they've kind of got like a bird's eye view of the whole.
Exactly. They have a broad perspective.
Okay, so it's like having a seasoned CFO on call,
Yeah,
except instead of managing my finances,
right.
they're managing my entire IT infrastructure. Okay, so that sounds pretty good.
It can be a real game changer for businesses.
So how do I find a good MSP?
Well, there are a lot of great MSPs out there,
Okay.
but one that I've been really impressed with is Cortavo.
Cortavo.
Yeah, they're super knowledgeable, customer-focused,
Uh-huh.
and they really understand the unique challenges that business leaders face.
Okay, so they get it.
They get it.
All right, so as we wrap up here today,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is to understand that IT is not just a cost.
Uh-huh.
It's an investment.
Right.
And every dollar you spend wisely on technology can generate significant returns.
So don't be cheap.
Don't be cheap, but be smart.
Be smart.
Yeah, find the right balance
All right.
between cost and quality.
And don't be afraid to ask for help,
Absolutely.
whether it's from an MSP or your internal IT team.
Right. Communication is key.
All right. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation.
It has been my pleasure.
I've learned a lot,
I'm glad to hear that.
and I hope our listeners have too.
Me too.
So to everyone out there, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into IT budgeting
Yes, thank you.
for business leaders.
It's been a great discussion.
And remember, technology can be a powerful tool for success,
Absolutely.
but only if you use it strategically.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So go out there, make those smart IT decisions, and watch your business thrive.
Best of luck, everyone.